Guys, so I had an unexpected meeting come up for tomorrow, which would be on Thursday, and we are going to do a roll call meeting. So I'm going to go through and actually talk to you about the same things that I would be doing in class, but you're just going to do it at your own pace individually today, instead. So we should have gotten through the first couple of slides, but just as a reminder, the last thing that we got to, I think, was this one. When looking at citing text evidence, you need to include the evidence and what other pieces of information. So if you didn't have this, you're going to write this down. I'll type it in here, and I want you guys to make your slides look like mine. So what you need to include is you also need to give credit. Give credit to where you found the information. So what this looks like, there's two ways that we do this, or the two main ways are the title of the source, and two is the author's name. So make sure you guys have that here. So not only do we have to include the text evidence, but we also have to include where we got it from, and we can do that by sharing the title with the writer, or with the reader, and also the author's name. So make sure you have that. And you can pause this video at any time. The next one, true or false, the reason given needs to be supported by evidence that directly ties to that reason. So each body paragraph is broken down by reasons, or one reason per body paragraph. That evidence does need to be supported by that, or the reason does need to be supported by evidence that directly ties to it. So that's what we talk about when we say relevant. So relevant means that it is on topic. If it's off topic from that reason, then we don't need to use it. So this one would be true. This statement is true. When explaining information, do you need to write less or more? And remember, people are not inside of your head, so think about that. If you're explaining something to somebody, is explaining less information better, or explaining more information better? So explaining, use as much information as necessary to explain. So what I mean by that is you want to put more, honestly, than less, because if you don't give them enough information, then they're going to be left with questions, and that's not going to be you're not going to be kind to them by doing that. So giving them more information is always preferable. However, you don't want to give them so much information or information they don't need to know. So you don't want it to be super lengthy, but you do want to give them as much information as necessary. So that could be 2 sentences, that could be 4 sentences. It could literally be as long as it needs to be, but if it's like 4 sentences and you could have said it in 2 sentences, then you need to rewrite that to make it more clear and concise. So I'm even going to put that too. So use as much information as necessary to explain. Don't include information that they don't need to know. Be clear and concise. Okay, the next one. How many sentences should the explain part of the body paragraph be, at least? So again, with the explain, you need to explain it however long that takes you. But how many at least does it need to be? So think about the two things. So it needs to be 2 sentences. And then 1 would be, it needs to explain the quote / information in your own words. And 2, you need to explain how that quote supports your claim. So this is a restate and answer of the topic sentence without transition word or phrase. So make sure you guys have this written down. And again, you can pause this video at any time to make sure you guys are able to include all of this information in your notebook. Okay, so now that you have all of those things in your notebook, the next thing on our agenda is to go over our new topic and the expectations for the next argument that we're going to make, and also to go through the resources. So I'm going to go through real quick with you guys and show you the resources that I've included on Classroom so far that go with this playlist and this detective's notebook. So the first thing is, you guys all know that you've got in your detective's notebook, it looks like this. Looking at the schedule, I've included dates that things are going to be due, and so you're going to actually have the second essay submitted to me by January 20th, and then we're going to do some editing and we're going to do things like that. So that's that Thursday, the January 20th, and then the body paragraph 1, or a body paragraph, is what is going to be graded, and I'm going to grade that following Monday. So after we do some editing of the essay and you're like, okay, this is a solid body paragraph and I did this correctly, then you're going to submit that for grading. So a resource that I've included already is the rubric for that. So here's the rubric for the body paragraph, and I'm going to go through this really quickly with you guys, but I'm going to be looking for each of these things when it comes to the body paragraph. So I want you to know that this is out there already. So when you're writing, you know how you're going to be graded. So you can look at this mastered or mastery column and you can say, okay, yes, I did that. So I have mastered that section. So the first thing is transition word or phrase. So basically you need to include one. So there are 3 things that need to be present when it comes to this. A transition word or phrase is included. So like to begin with, or to start, or also, or furthermore, those kind of things. Second, it goes with the paragraph it belongs to. So if it's the first body paragraph and the first reason, you could say something like first, or first off, or to start. But if it's the second body paragraph, you wouldn't say to start with, because you're not starting your argument there. You started it at body paragraph 1. So it has to go with what it belongs to. And then also a comma is included after. So the transition word or phrase should be have a comma after, because you can take it out if you need to. That's what that comma represents, and it also signals to the reader that that is a transition word and phrase. So it's another way that we're being nice. So you will get 3 points if you do all 3 of those things, just by adding a transition word and doing it correctly. To restate the question, you will get 4 points for this. The mastered column is just so. The question is correctly restated with all important words from the original question included. The reader knows what is being asked without seeing the question. So you're restating and answering the question. That is your claim. So make sure you guys do that. Answering the question. So for this one, really, you need to answer. The answer is given using the writer's own words, so it's in your own words, and it's relevant and clear. So I'm not necessarily going to say there's a right or a wrong answer if the evidence supports it, but it needs to be on topic and it needs to be clear what your answer is. So don't pick like 2 points of view and talk about both of them. Pick one thing and go with that. Citing would be the giving credit to where you got the information. So you're going to get 2 points if the specific author's name or specific title of the source is included to introduce the quote. So you get 2 points if you do that. Evidence. The evidence that is provided is relevant and reliable. Remember, relevant is that it is on topic, and reliable is that it's trustworthy. So if you've done that with your quote, you'll get 4 points. So 2 points for each of those things. Explain evidence part 1 is a sentence starter, or sentence starter is included and evidence is paraphrased. So back to what we just did in our detective's notebook, where it said the first sentence is you putting in your own words what that quote means. This is saying you need to include a sentence starter to like transition into that, like this quote shows or this proves, and then paraphrase it. If you've done that, you get 2 points. For part 2, so it says sentence starter is included and the evidence is tied back to the claim and reason of the paragraph. So again, I'm looking for that sentence starter, but I'm looking for that purpose of the second part of that, which is that it's tying it back to your reason for that, their claim and the reason. And then the last thing is you'll get 4 points for grammar. So you get 4 points if you have 0 to 1 grammatical errors. You get 3 points if you get 1 to 2 grammatical errors, and so on and so forth. So just make sure you're spell checking what you do in this body paragraph. So that was resource number 1 that you were provided with. So now that we went through that, I'm going to quickly show you what you're going to be doing first. So you're going to work on worksheet 1 first, and that's on Google Classroom. And it's called Reform Movement Expectations and Instructions, worksheet 1. Looks like this. So you're given the question. So you're just going to go in order. You're given the question, what was a reform movement that had a great impact on the United States during the 1800s and 1900s? So your step 1 is to actually pick a topic. So what I've done is I've gone down here and I have given you the 5 main ones from the time period and the 5 ones that you would have talked about in social studies. I've also given you the textbook pages, so I have that as a source for you guys, and you'll actually have the hard copy of the book if you want, or you can use this link to go to the textbook and find those page numbers. And then I've also provided a Newsella article for you guys to read. So once you've picked a topic that you're interested in, then you need to read these 2 sources. So you need to actually pick one. And if you are like, I don't know which one to pick, I have linked in here videos to tell you what they're each about. So to give you a little bit more context, this is also something that you can use as a source if you really need to. But once you've picked one, then you need to read the 2 articles or go through the 2 articles. You need to make sure you take Cornell Notes. You need to make sure you take Cornell Notes, and you need to, or highlight the article. So basically, like in the textbook, you can't actually highlight on the textbook, but you can take notes, because anything you take as notes, you can use as evidence. And then same thing with the Newsella article, you can actually highlight it. We'll highlight the article with the question in mind. So anything that goes with how that reform movement had a great impact on the United States is something you should highlight. And I even put here, remember, you are taking notes and annotating with the question in mind. So you need to be thinking about that question at all times. You don't have to write everything down. It's not relevant. We're looking for reliable and relevant information. So if it doesn't have to do with the question, then it's not relevant to what we're doing. And then you just need to take notes and annotate on the pieces of evidence that specifically help you answer the question. That's what you're doing right now. So then we go down here, and I even gave you guys some important information about those reform movements if you wanted it. But step 3, you need to find your own source then. So what I did was I included this credible source checklist, and what I'm going to have you do, and we might go through this together a little bit more when we get to it, but you guys are going to go ahead and find a third source, and you're actually going to go through and ask yourself each one of those questions. If that source turns out to be credible and reliable and relevant, then you can use it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right now and just stop it right here so that I don't go so far. I don't think that you guys will get past step 3 by any means, so because you need to take time and actually read through the textbook and read through the Newsella article. And so if you have any questions, you can always go ahead and email me because of the meeting that I'm going to be at. I should be able to have my email up because I'll be working on the computer and stuff like that. I won't get to it right away, but if you do have questions about this, you can always email me and ask. The only other resource that there is to mention, which would be worksheet 2, but is at the end. Once you've collected all of your information, then you're actually going to fill out your argumentative outline and start writing your essay. So again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.